Hello and welcome there to another episode of the Cliff Notes podcast, where we ask a leader and find their way. Today I'm talking with Ellie Dix, owner of the UK family board game company The Dark Imp and author of Board Game Family, Reclaiming Children from the Screen. So how are you doing today, Ellie?
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on. I'm doing very well, thank you.
That's great, it's great. So what is it that you're reclaiming children with? Is this an ongoing fight you feel that people are having?
I think so, and I think probably even more so in the last year or since the pandemic struck, that the screen is a very helpful babysitter. But before we know where we are as parents, we can realise that we've possibly overdone that. And with all this homeschooling and online learning, it's lovely to have something to bring our family away from the screen, enable us to sit around a table and play games together. So that's what I'm focusing on, giving families those moments of playing together.
Mm-hmm. No, I passionately love board games and the sort of conversations and the togetherness it does bring. But what brought you to working in this area? Because the company in this form is not so old, yeah?
No, exactly. I set up the Dark Imp in 2019. Before that, I owned and ran a company called Pivotal Education. We trained teachers in how to manage behaviour. And I did that with my husband for about 15 years. And it was a totally different business, but I loved running a business. And we sold the business in 2017. And I knew that when I left that business, I would want to set up a new one. So, I've always been a keen board gamer, this, and a hobby designer. So this is really a dream come true. That I just thought, this is what I absolutely want to do. I'm going to dive into creating and publishing and selling family games and try to get families who maybe are stuck in some of the old, more mainstream games into more modern board gaming. That's what I'm trying to do.
I mean, is that the area that you've sort of always worked in, is sort of helping people learn to learn, helping people to come together?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a teacher. Before that, that was years ago, but before that I did a lot of youth work. All of the work I've ever done has been around young people and learning. And when we ran our old company, Pivotal Education, that was all about training teachers how to teach in a more effective manner, how to manage other people's behaviour. And it's a real education piece. And I always feel that whatever you do, I'm selling board games now, but it's not just selling board games. I'm educating parents about how they can use board games to improve family life and what kinds of board games are going to work for their family. So there's a constant kind of undercurrent, and that's the reason why I'm doing it. It's not just to churn out games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And instead of talking around it, what's the game that's gone best down with your family in the last year?
Well, my own family loves a game that is not quite out yet, but is coming to Kickstarter later this year. My own game called Uranus, which of course has been designed so that families can have a good laugh as they play it. And it's a game of variable player powers where each player is controlling a different moon of Uranus, where there is an alien race living, but all the moons are under attack from asteroids. And you have to build networks to mine different moon rocks, which together form different groups to do projects and ultimately enable you to travel to Uranus. So you're trying to discover spaceship technology, you're trying to build launch pads so you can launch moon rocks to Uranus, to build habitation modules and all these things. And it's a cooperative game. So you are all playing together to try and beat the game. And one of the things that I try to do is make sure when I'm creating games that there's no long turns when anyone's sitting around and waiting. So Uranus is one of these games that has simultaneous action. So all the players are always playing together, concentrating on what they're doing on their own moon board and then helping their neighbouring moons with their special powers at the same time. So that's definitely they're most excited about this game. And in a sort of wider way, I suppose, the game that has so far been my best seller has been there are two. There's the coaster games, which are these just games on coasters, little like beer mats. And there's a game on one side and the rules are on the back. And also the cracker games. They're 6 games in a giant Christmas cracker, and they went mad last year. So that's great.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that you mentioned Kickstarter before, but did you have the Cracker game or something was on a Kickstarter last year as well? So
yes,
you're not new to this space.
No, I'm not. Well, the Cracker games were my first sort of foray into Kickstarter as a project creator. I've been very familiar with the platform for years as a board gamer, obviously buying lots of board games on Kickstarter because it's quite a common way for board games to fund.
Yeah, I mean, is that sort of crowdfunding and being able to pay for a whole shipment before it's been printed been a sort of a good viable model? I mean, I've seen it with other manufacturers, but that's worked well for you too.
Yeah, and I think it works partly because people within the hobby board gamers are used to this as a method of getting out new games. So they're used to looking on the platform, seeing what they can get excited about, and then waiting for it to arrive. And some Kickstarters take absolutely ages to arrive. I mean, I got one the other day, which I backed over a year ago. But I think it's more challenging in my situation, which is that, I'm not really trying to market to hobby board gamers. I'm trying to market to families. And not all of them are used to that sort of model. I mean, many people have never, kind of even dipped their toe into crowdfunding before or really understand what it is. So I had this whole challenge around educating people about what the platform is, how it works, and how even just think, like, what do you press if you want to back this campaign? What's going to happen afterwards? And, how are you going to get updates, and when are you going to get your Cracker games? So there was quite a big learning curve in terms of my customer base. But I think it does generally really help small businesses to get new projects off the ground and test the project, test the idea, in terms of whether people are going to want to buy it before you've really spent very much money. I mean, obviously you spend money possibly on prototypes, and you're spending money on design, and you're spending time in terms of creating your Kickstarter page, but you're selling an idea that you haven't yet put much money into. And so if people don't like it, at least before you've bought thousands of units of it. So in that respect, it works quite well.
And for other people then who aren't so familiar, it's a form of crowdfunding, of collecting the money based on an idea or maybe a ready product, and then the product gets built and shipped out at the end rather than going through a shop. Is that right?
Exactly. So you create a page, and it's like a web page, really. It's a campaign page, and on that you're likely to have a video showing whatever it is, the board game, showing how it works, or it could be another item. I think you can buy all sorts of different things, all sorts of technology often funds in this way. And then there's a huge page, really, of details. It might have reviews. So for board games, you're going to have a review, several. I mean, I had about 6 on my page. And you're going to have lots of information about the components, what's included, what the manufacturing process is going to be like, and what the delivery schedule is possibly going to be like. And then you also allow backers, because they're backers rather than customers at that point, you allow backers to choose their pledge level. So they can say they want to pledge, let's say, £25 for one copy of the game. Or they could say they want to pledge £40 for one copy of the game with upgraded components. And this is a common thing with board games. You buy metal coins, or you buy, groovy deluxe version of some of the components. Or in my case, I give extra games out to higher pledge levels. So you can buy the base game, you can buy multiple copies of it if you want to, and then you can pledge to get more games, different games in higher pledge levels. And you get the money. So you run your Kickstarter for a certain period of time, often 30 days, and you set a target for what you need to get for this project or what you want to get. Really, that target is, at what point is it worth it for you to do this project? So if it's £2,000, set it at that. If it's £10,000, set it at that. Whatever it is, however much it's going to cost you to get your initial load of components and your initial units, that's the price. And then people back, and you see the total raised going up. And at the end of the 30 days, if you have not reached your target, the backers do not spend any money. It's not withdrawn from their account, and you, as the project creator, get nothing. If it has reached its target, then all the money is automatically withdrawn from the backers at that time, and you, as the creator, get that money up front. Now, it could overfund. I mean, some campaigns overfund by 500%, 5,000% even. Some board games are making £250,000. It's unbelievable. And you get all that money, you get it up front, and then you pay for your manufacturing costs afterwards. And then you ship out the product to all the backers. And you keep in touch with them. You send them updates about how it's going.
Sponsorship of this podcast has been brought to you by Holding Bay, the digital web agency. Holding Bay specialises in working with B2B companies like manufacturers to build better solutions and drive better sales funnels. So if you would like to build a web application or improve your branding and sales funnel, get in contact today. holdingbay.co.uk or call us on 01273 044 019.
As you go through the project.
I love the photos I've seen of these, and your super cutout imp. Are they wooden?
Yeah,
people?
So I have these little imps. The Dark Imp character appears in all the games.
So they're great. So when you have pieces like that are obviously going to have to be cut unique for yourself. I mean, just for this project, obviously it was meant to be a sort of smaller piece rather than a massive, very complicated game. But there's still a lot of sort of small pieces in there. Will you have set all those at the beginning of the campaign, or did you change some pieces towards the end?
So personally, I set everything before I go into a campaign because I want to be able to know what the timescale for delivery is going to be before I set up that campaign page. I want to be able to say on my campaign page, it's going to take this long to manufacture, and this is when when I'm going to receive everything, and this is how long assembly is going to take, and this is how long shipping is going to take, so that I can confidently and fairly accurately say, you will get your game here at this point. Now, it's important that I do that because my last Kickstarter was a Christmas game, and not the next one, but the following one, I'm going to be doing another one for this Christmas, which will run during September. People who are backing, they want that for Christmas. So for me, it's important to do all of that, pre-work on the components, the discussions with the manufacturers, the samples, get all of that beforehand so that I'm ready to send the email and say, go. Now, not everybody works in the same way, and that's why some of these Kickstarter projects take quite a long time. In addition to that, there's an added complication, which is that most board game publishers use specific board game manufacturers. There are a few of these in Europe. There's 4 or 5 in Europe, but most of them are out in China. And they are so overwhelmed with orders that the European ones, I'm not sure about the Chinese ones because I haven't been in contact with any of them, but the European ones have now said that you need to give 6 months notice before you want a project. So if I book a project in now and say I've got everything, I got it, this is all the components, they'll be scheduling me in for printing in 6 months' time. So there's this huge delay because of the enormous amount of board games that are being manufactured at the moment, and they have raised all their minimum order quantities. So you can't get less than 3,000 units anywhere, which is fine for board game publishers who've got a reputation and who've really well-known names, but even so, selling 3,000 copies of a game might be challenging for some of them. So there are these additional challenges which are really thrown up for publishers, which can set back the schedule because they don't have the manufacturing capability themselves. They're using external manufacturers to do that. So it's a juggling act, really. And that's why I don't use board game manufacturers, because I want to have a bit more control over it.
Right. I mean, and are these things that you've had to sort of work out and learn, or do you have to iterate a lot on many of your parts, or have a close relationship with just one or two providers?
Yes, exactly. I have got a close relationship with one or two providers. I have a provider for my wooden components, which are very, very hard to get anywhere in Europe. In fact, they don't unless you're going and getting your entire board game manufactured, you can't really get individual wooden components manufactured at the kind of bulk quantity that you need, for just centimetre cubes and things. You can buy those in standard colours, but not in bespoke colours. So if you want your own specific colours for your own game or your own branding, you have to go to China to do that. So that's the only thing that I get from China is the wooden components. And then I have a local printer who is about 5 miles away from me and does all of my printed material. So all of the punch boards where you have tiles that you punch out of, kind of thick cardboard, that he does them, all of the rule books, all of the sleeves around the boxes, because I don't have printed boxes. I have standard company boxes. They're branded company boxes made again by a British manufacturer, with the name of the company debossed in the lid. They're very beautiful, but they are plain. They're plain white. And then we have sleeves that go on them according to the game. So the printer prints the sleeves, the rule books, the punch board, playing cards, player aids, game boards, anything printed they can do. So they are absolutely fabulous. And yes, it costs me far more than it would cost to go to China and get board games printed over there. But for a small publisher that does not have, I've made a decision that I want to have a range of games for families. I don't want to have 1 or 2 games a year that I'm getting in huge quantities and selling out through retail. I want to have a good range of games that people are going to come direct to my website and buy. And to get to the point where you can have that range, I need much smaller quantities. So, of course, each one costs more. My cost price is higher, so my gross profit is much lower. My margin is lower. But to start as a new company, it's fine. It works. It's just a different way to manage things, really.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, apart from knowing maybe exactly what the game is going to be, do you have to work out quite long lead times, or have been deciding, yes, I'm going to do 3 games a year for the next 6 years, or I'm going to do 1 bigger game and several little games? Or does this sort of flexibility that you've worked out with the sort of more flexible, higher costs allow you to not have to plan quite as far out?
Yeah, I can be very flexible in terms and adapt to what I think I need to produce. So, for example, in the last year, when March hit last year and the pandemic arrived, I shifted my focus onto games that could be downloaded and played, printed at home and played with lots of people via Zoom. So, and in fact, I've got lots of games, some of which are printed, some of which are downloadable print and play games, but that can be played on Zoom. And that's what I decided I would use as my target and my main inspiration for 2020. So because I'm not planning years in advance, I'm able to be reactive and make sure I'm getting things out much quicker if they're needed much quicker. And of course, a downloadable game that you just print out and then write on, a score sheet is going to be much easier to produce because it's just the design cost, just the cost of creating the PDF. It's the game design process and then the graphic design process and then the uploading and the technical stuff, which is easy. So there aren't the manufacturing considerations. In terms of my plan for 2021, I knew that I was going to run this Kickstarter in March, which is the Uranus Kickstarter. There'll be a smaller game which is attached to that as a higher pledge level, which has already been designed and has already gone through the graphic design process and is ready to go to the printer. So that will be attached to that Kickstarter as well. And then I will be doing one more Kickstarter later in the year, in September, for the Christmas project, which I am currently designing, doing the game design for. And this is going to be a sort of 12 games of Christmas idea. So there'll be 12 games in a box, and every day for 12 days you'll open an envelope and there'll be new components in there which you can add to components you've already got to play 12 different games. So right now I'm designing that, but I already knew that's what I was going to do. So I decided upon the sort of loose idea, but the design of the process, that's happening in sort of December, January. By the end of February, I'll be playtesting all of those games with people, even if I have to send them copies in the post. So, but it's flexible. And I've got other games which are going into competitions at the moment. I've got, the ideas I've got several other games which are ready to go to the graphic designer. And I'm sort of queuing up things for future times, but I haven't definitely decided exactly when to do them, because I think the advantage of being a small company is that you can be quite fast and reactive. So yes, I've got a plan, and yes, it might change.
I applaud you for the variety and the ingenuity that you have got with the games, and for such a young company of how they can be adapted. And obviously, it sounds like you've even been thinking on your feet enough that you've adapted some of them for some of these concepts for this year. But the design and the branding seems to stay so well and consistent, and you've hit on this good theme that is lasting across different games without sort of feeling like, oh, it was a bit of a stretch over here or it wasn't over there. There's feeling this sort of warmth and strong, clear imagery and colours and stuff. Is that something that's taken a while to come up with, or you just sort of hit lucky with the way that it's turned out?
Well, thank you. And it is something I get loads of comments on. People often say, oh, I love your website, or I love your branding, I love your imp, I love your company name, I love everything. People say that a lot, that they have a very strong reaction to the branding, which is, I can't say it was all completely planned to the last degree. I did get lucky to a certain degree, but it's something that I learned from my previous business, that the value of strong and clear branding is it's huge. It pulls people into your company. When you have strong branding, people see it and remember it. So it was really important to create branding that was going to appeal to teenagers, because I want teenagers to get to the table and play games, but also to the parents who are going to buy the games in the first place. And having a character, this Dark Imp character, helps to draw people in and make them feel connected to the company. And it did take a little bit of time to evolve in my head in terms of what the company name was going to be and what the character would be like. But then once I had that, I knew it was important to invest in a branding company who could realize this vision. And in fact, it's the most money I put in setting up the company was in this branding thing. I just knew it was definitely right to start from day one with clear branding, because it's so hard. The hardest thing with any new business, I think, is to attract followers and customers in the first place. And you need to set yourself up to give you the best chance of standing out and looking professional, and it's a trust message, isn't it? If you have clear branding, it doesn't look all haphazard and all over the place. People just assume, even subconsciously, that you know what you're doing, that this is a solid company, even if it's a young company, that is properly run and that has got something about it. And that is so valuable in terms of getting customers in the first place and keeping them for the long term. So it was intentional, though I'm obviously really pleased with how it's come out, and everybody loves the Imp.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and obviously, I'm sure when you set up the company, when COVID stuff wasn't the big issue that it's been. So, but I mean, that's obviously it's going to have played in a little bit. Is the sense of people can't have walked into a shop or a trade show or like a games fair or something and found and be able to touch and see your product in the same way. So, being able to convey that clearly and sort of in a bold way must have that sort of advantage with the sort of sharing online.
I think so. And also I think it's really important that, I spend a lot of my time writing blogs. This whole education piece that I mentioned before, I create videos. I've got my own radio show, and these kind of the content that you put out there, whether it's written or audio or video, is what connects people to you, your ideas, and your brand. And it's important to have a good online shop if you can't have a presence in a physical shop. And I do feel sorry for, bigger brands that have relied on traditional retail outlets to sell and have really come unstuck in the last 12 months. And it's just awful to see it happening. But for my own part, I'm quite glad that I focused on online, and I have steered away from big retailers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, is part of your makeup though to sell through other channels, or is it everything sold sort of by yourself or through your website?
It's definitely, I am definitely selling through other channels, and it's part of my plan for 2021 to increase this a lot. But the other channels aren't necessarily traditional channels that other board game publishers are going to be pursuing. So because of my higher cost prices, it's not really viable for me to go to big retail companies who really need to get the cost price down so low because they need to add quite a high margin on themselves. So it's not really viable for me to do that. But I'm working a lot with schools. I'm increasing my presence in the travel sector. And in terms of, for example, getting out games through holiday rental properties, getting out games through glamping sites and hotels, so that when people go on holiday, they're able to access those things. And also in the schools market, getting games into schools so that those children can go home, talk about the games they've been playing, and play them at home as well. So I am using other channels, just not the big retail channels that you might expect.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, is this how you're seeing that the way that you're approaching an audience is to adapt and use maybe some other channels that maybe you've been familiar with in other ways in the past, or you could see could be an option,
exactly,
rather than sort of just leaving it and waiting for it, put it in the shop window?
Yeah, exactly. I think you've got to, one of the exciting things about being a business leader is that you don't have to stick to traditional models. Just because everybody else is doing it in a certain way does not mean you have to do it that way. I mean, actually, it's really exciting. And if you can spot places that haven't yet really been fully used, routes to market that haven't been exploited. Opportunities are there. You just have to search them out and think a little bit differently from other people. And as a lean, small company, there's no reason why you can't just say, yep, that's what I need to do. I'm going that way. And in a year's time, I might have a different plan. I have got a sort of 5-year plan, and I've got a sort of a plan, a more detailed plan for this year, but that might change. And that's the beauty of being flexible. But I think, with any company, it's really important to have a long-term vision. So if you need to know where you're trying to get to in the long term, but how you get there might shift and change as circumstances change.
Mm-hmm. So at the moment, the aim is not to gain volume, reduce costs, and ship more products, more happy families playing. It is a sort of a variety of streams and keeping that sort of that value and the sort of high price, the high
Well,
product.
the of course, the aim is to increase volume and reduce price. That it's absolutely the aim. But the way that I'm going to do that might be slightly different from other people. So if I'm focusing on getting games out to schools, that's a different route. So yes, of course, I'm trying to get things out to as many people as possible and hope to get contracts that will allow me to deliver many games to a few different customers. But I don't want to lose sight of the ultimate aim, which is to connect with families and to provide really great games for families at home. And therefore, there will always be a direct to customer online website and a strong online presence, which is directed at families and families alone.
Mm. And really, have you felt so far that there is this community of other businesses, other UK manufacturers, other board game manufacturers that you're feeling part of and you're sort of working with, or that there is
it's fabulous.
Some sort of change or some sort of growth?
The whole board game industry is absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's so collaborative, it's so supportive. I mean, it's an extension of the hobby. So the hobby itself, board gaming as a hobby, is incredibly inclusive. It's extremely diverse, all sorts of different people play. And the aim really is that you can go to any board game club and feel welcome, and you'll be able to sit down at a table and play with other people. And I think the industry has done a good job at kind of extending this into the companies that support the hobby. So often publishers work together to jointly manufacture games. Publishers often work together across different regions, so you might get a license for a game for one publisher in France and a different one in Germany, and they have a long history of working together in that way. So and there are many conventions. So it's the kind of, it's not a trade show because they are open to the public, but you go to these board game conventions and people who love board games are there and people who sell board games are there, and it is this really vibrant community of people who are just all happy to be around games and play games. So this kind of convention culture helps to keep people together, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I look forward to when we can have the things opened up again. Some UK conventions are over in Essen and Germany to see everyone running around and mobbing your table.
I miss Essen.
Playing again.
I miss Essen so much this year.
Yeah, it is chaos and busy, but it's sort of fun at the same time. You've touched on a few different areas in that sort of longer term goal of the games in people's hands. Is it an educational play or some sort of family interaction? The value that people get from each other in the family, or where's this sort of longer goal of the part of shaping this sort of future of more games in people's hands?
Well, I think it is about sitting around, in its basic sense, sitting around a table with people that you love and care about and feeling like you are able to connect with them and having these joint experiences that create shared memories and strengthen relationships. That is ultimately what it is all about. And I think it's really sad that quite a lot of parents seem to have lost a little bit of confidence, I guess, in how to have these moments, particularly as children become teenagers and they become more independent and more spiky a lot of the time. And our discussions with them as adults often get more transactional and functional and less relaxed and less playful than they were when they were little. And this is about helping families to put everything else all the emotions and worries and stresses of family life on the back burner for a little while, sit down together and play a game. And this is play. Play is important. Play is super important for each and every one of us, but also for us as part of a family. It's really easy for us all to sit around, even in the same room on different devices, and sort of be talking, but not really be looking at each other, or even not talking. You can be surrounded by people and feel very far away from them. But board games bring you together. They give you this experience. And it's something that draws everybody in, and they're easy. It's easy to get a game to the table. It's on the shelf. You don't have to go to the shop and buy a load of stuff. You don't have to go. It's not a long-term project like building a tree house, or you don't have to go somewhere special like if you want to go skiing together. You can just pull a game off a shelf, put it on the table and get started within a couple of minutes. And there's a board game for every occasion, for every kind of conceivable family interest. And that's what I'm trying to do, to bring games to families and help them, give them moments to connect with each other.
And so just as we move into the end of the interview, it's been great sort of covering this topic with you. Passion of mine also of sort of collecting and playing them and just that slightly different interaction you start having with other people when you're all on a shared aim or not shared aim around the table, and just the conversation that you get to have. Apart from your own book and games, which we're looking forward to playing this year, what would be another game to add to the roster that you could recommend?
Well, I think my favourite game recently has been Quacks of Quedlinburg. I don't know if you've played it. It's just brilliant.
Great name.
It is a good name. It's a great game. It's a push-your-luck game, and it's a bag builder. So you have all these different coloured tokens that you have in your own bag, and you have a sort of cauldron with a spiral board in front of you, and everybody plays at the same time. You pull out ingredients from your bag and put them in your cauldron. You're kind of creating a potion, and you start in the middle of the spiral and you build out, and different token colours allow you to do different things. But if you get a certain amount of white ones, your potion explodes. And you're trying to get as far around the potion pot as you can to get yourself as many points as you can, and to get yourself to and allow yourself to buy some really valuable tokens to add to your bag. And it plays quickly. It's endlessly different every time you play. It's exciting. There's a load of tension. There's a sort of this moment when you're looking at everybody else and thinking, oh, they're a bit further on than me. I want to get a bit further on so I've got the chance of getting this bonus you get if you're the furthest on the track. But I'm so close to busting on this potion, it's going to explode if I'm not careful. And you just have to go, oh, shall I delve into the bag one more time or not? And invariably you shouldn't have done, because everything explodes and it's a mess. So, but it's an absolutely lovely game. It's that tension but delight. It's one of those things that gives you a delightful experience, and everybody, even my husband, who's quite hard to please with games, absolutely loves it.
Cool. And the sort of fun question that we tend to end the shows with, you can either put yourself in the mindset of one of the families or the parents that you're helping work with, or yourself as a game designer. If you're boxed into the corner and you need to come out fighting and come out on top, what were the two things that you'd grab to help you win the day?
Right. Well, I think I would probably grab a set of blank playing cards and some pens, because if I was in the corner of the room and wanted to make a real difference to a day, I think you could be endlessly creative with a set of blank playing cards and some pens. And even if you start the day with nothing and you feel like you're at the lowest of the low, then at the end of the day, you might have created something that turns into something absolutely beautiful. And you can always create your own games on the fly with just blank playing cards and some pens. So I'd do that. Go and spread love and joy around the place by playing games with people.
That's great. And just to keep that sentiment going, where can we find out more and get hold of the games, or what's the next things we can look out for from yourself?
Well, my website is www.thedarkimp.com. There's a online shop on there, and all the games that are currently available are on there. In addition, there's a link to along the top of the menu bar which says Kickstarter, and there you can find out about our Uranus Kickstarter for the game I told you about earlier. And you can sign up for campaign notifications there if you're interested in that game. And then I'll tell you as soon as the campaign goes live. And you can also follow me on Twitter. I'm at Ellie Dix Tweets. Oh, if you want to join the mailing list, which you can also do through the website, you will get a free print and play game instantly upon signing up. And then you can be kept up to date with everything that's going on as well.
Can't say fairer than that. Yeah, so if people are also interested to learn more about how you've built this up and building the games, they can tweet you and or contact you through there, but also get some games and get going with the family too. So
exactly.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, it's been great. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on the Cliff Notes podcast. If you'd like to contact me or the guest, please do so at CliffNotesPod on Twitter, or the website is cliffnotespodcast.com. Thank you, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.